Dollars will be worth less at an alarming pace. In this episode, I'm going to give you my prediction about the future purchasing power of the American dollar. Get ready. I'm a realist. I'm not an alarmist, but the cost of living is going up dramatically. So my name's Doug Andrew. I've been a financial strategist now for more than 48 years. And I've been very blessed in my career to have authored 11 books thus far. I'm working on my 12th. And we are extremely grateful for the receptivity of these books. We've gone through over 1 million copies. Several have been bestsellers. And in 2007, we actually were blessed to have a New York Times and Wall Street Journal #1 bestseller. In my books and also on my national radio show that's been running now for 13 years and on this YouTube channel where I have over 500 educational videos, many times people will ask me as I go through the country speaking to give my predictions, especially at breaks. And so in this episode, I'm going to give you my prediction about the future purchasing power of the American dollar and where I think we're headed due to inflation, which is at a higher rate than it's been in decades. So this is not a political agenda, but I'm going to simply shoot straight with you if that's okay, because people always ask, please shoot straight. And I say, would you prefer I be honest or gentle? And they say, we want you to be honest, even if it's not gentle. It's really about what's going on and what's causing inflation and what's that mean for us in the long run down the road. So let's talk about the real rate of inflation compared to what the government is reporting as the inflation rate, so that you're aware that the CPI, which means Consumer Price Index, is way less than the real rate of inflation. So let me simplify this. I started as a financial strategist in 1974. And so back then, as we went from, Nixon and so forth to the Carter years, Carter went up to as high as 13% inflation. And I remember back then when inflation hit double digits at 10%, I was teaching my clients how to earn a rate of return greater than the inflation rate, how to outpace inflation. In fact, I've always earned about 5.5% greater than the inflation rate at the time, and I'll show you how you can learn how to do that at the end of this episode. But because inflation topped out at 13%, the federal government said, golly, we cannot afford to pay Social Security recipients an annual raise or increase at the true inflation rate. It'll break us. And so they decided to change the way they report inflation, the CPI. In a nutshell, they used to compare every year a basket of goods to the same basket of goods, the price increase, apples to apples. Well, they basically changed it through two major pieces of legislation in the 80s, from apples to oranges, so to speak, which now means they can actually compare the price of something like a filet mignon steak last year to hamburger this year if they choose. And people are not aware of this. So I'm recording this episode in October of 2021, but it applies no matter if we're talking about 1980 or 20 years from now. When the CPI is calculated based upon their new method, smoke and mirrors is what I call it, they will give Social Security recipients an increase. And just a week before the recording of this episode, the government announced the largest raise to Social Security recipients is going to be paid this year, 5.9%. Well, that means they are reporting inflation at just under 6%. Well, earlier this year in April, they were shocked because they said, oh, it's 4.2%. Then went up to 5 and now up to 6. Folks, it's really about 2.5 times that at least because of the true cost of inflation. So for example, a year ago, a used car was $21,000. The same car now is $28,000. Some things like cooking oil, vegetable oil is up 60%. TVs are up 8%, furniture 11%, washing machines are up 30%. The gas pump, most people are paying at least $1 more per gallon, and they used to pay around $2, now it's $3. That's a 50% increase. Some states are even higher than that. You see it every time you go to the grocery store. A pound of bacon has gone up a couple of dollars, from 5 something a pound up to $7 a pound for bacon. And so the true rate of inflation is more like 15 to 20%. And this is very detrimental, especially to the middle to lower income people, because they have set incomes. And even if they had a raise, the minimum wage went up, most of that raise, maybe all of it, was gobbled up at the gas pump or the hamburger stand, okay? So when we talk about the real rate of inflation, it's more in the 15 to 20% range, and it's out of control. What causes inflation? Well, generally the printing of money. When government spends more than they bring in, when their outgo exceeds their income, their upkeep becomes their downfall. And so the government has been bringing in between $3.5 to $5 trillion a year in income and revenue. That's how much the IRS collects in taxes. And in 2020, they spent double that, $9.2 trillion, COVID-19, whatever. But nonetheless, they spent twice as much as they brought in. Now, if you made $100,000 and you spent $200,000, how long can you do that? Instead of tightening their belt, in 2021, they added at least another $5 trillion, possibly $10 trillion on top of that. And so here they are, maybe collecting $5-6 trillion, they hope, in revenue, but they're going to be shelling out $15 trillion or more because of these initiatives that are passing. And so if you were making $100,000 and you spent $200,000 last year, and this year you say, oh, I'm going to try to make ends meet by spending $300,000 or $400,000, and I'm going to do that by printing more money and by raising taxes. Well, folks, that's what the government is forced to do. They have to either print more money or raise taxes, and of course they're having to do both. How much are they printing? Are you ready for this? The federal government has been printing about $100 billion of money every single month for several months. They said this was going to be temporary because of COVID-19. In April of 2021, the Federal Reserve met to discuss how to start tapering that down, and they said, oh, let's keep going. In summer of 2021, they also said, let's put it off, let's keep going. This is not going to end up well. So they're printing money like crazy. That's over $1 trillion in 10 months that's going in. That's 1/5 of the income they receive, and they're just printing it in money. Maybe their motive is to be able to pay off the national debt with discounted dollars, which is what happens when you owe money. You like inflation because you're paying off your debt with future dollars, which are worth less. It's been speculated that Biden wants to change the whole monetary system by the year 2025 if he makes it through his 4 years as a tenure as president of the United States. If they were to change the monetary system, it would require the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for this reset. Maybe you've heard of that term, reset. And that there will be an international currency. They're looking at doing digital, and there's nothing backing digital currency and so forth. That's what cryptocurrency is and everything else. This episode is not about that, but there's nothing backing any of that. And so it could all come down and fall apart in one day, which I think is going to happen someday at the end of the day. Well, let's go back to my prediction about the purchasing power of the dollar in this interim period. It's going to get less and less and less. The cost of living is going to go up. By how much? I am not going to be an alarmist to say it's runaway inflation, where there are periods in history, not particularly in America, but they were taking wheelbarrows of money out of the bank because within a matter of weeks or months, the dollars or the currency in that country was cut in half or down to 1/10 of what it was. I don't know if we're going to go there. But we will see inflation continue in this double-digit range. Now, at 10% inflation, do you know what the rule of 72 is? See, normally people think of the rule of 72 when you're calculating how much your money will grow to at a given interest rate. So you take an interest rate, like 5%, and you divide 5 into number 72, and your money will double every 14.4 years, about every 15 years. If you're earning 8%, 8 into 72, your money doubles every 9 years, okay? Now, this isn't monthly deposits. This is like 100,000 will double to 200,000 in 9 years if you're earning 8%. In 8 years if you're earning 9%. If you're earning 7.2%, it doubles every 10 years. If you're earning 10%, it doubles every 7.2 years. Are you getting it? So let me ask you this. Using the rule of 72, if you could get by on $50,000 a year, a little over $4,000 a month today, to buy the same gallons of gas and loaves of bread, let's say 15 years from now, at an average inflation rate of 5%, okay, how much will you need? And people go, Well, you divide 5% inflation into 72, and the cost of living will double every 14.4 years. You'll need 100,000 to buy what 50,000 buys today in 15 years. Now that's been sort of the average inflation rate. Now it's 10% or higher. 10 into 72 means the cost of living will double every 7.2 years. Inflation at 12%, it doubles every 6 years. That means 6 years from now, you're going to need 100,000 to buy what 50,000 buys today. Well, another 6 years from then, and 12 years from today, you will need double that again. You're going to need 200,000 to buy what 50,000 buys today. Let's add another 6 years to that. In 18 years, you're going to need 400,000 a year to buy what 50,000 buys today. This is what causes a lot of people to outlive their money. Okay. So what I'm going to do is share with you a term which is called quantitative easing. But before I explain that, let me invite you to subscribe to this channel, and here's why. I post in-depth answers to financial questions almost on a daily basis on this three-dimensional wealth channel, but I also love to give predictions like this one. If this is resonating with you and you can think of somebody that ought to hear this, be sure and share, post a comment, click like, but subscribe, click on the link below, and click on that little bell so that you'll be notified every time I post a new video, which I do almost on a daily basis. It's free, but stay with me to the end of this episode, and I want to gift you a copy of one of my most recent best-selling books to help empower you to protect yourself from the negative impact of taxes, inflation, and so forth. I feel like the U.S. Treasury is undermining what they're trying to accomplish. They're sort of going down the highway with one foot on the gas pedal and the other foot on the brake pedal, and they don't know they're doing it. Do you know that the U.S. Treasury started in 1913 for two primary purposes? To basically make sure that, people had jobs, the economy was flourishing with jobs, and also price controls, to keep prices under control, and they're sort of undermining that. So what's been happening recently is the Federal Reserve printing this $100 billion a month. This is what they call quantitative easing. And Wall Street sort of even jokes about it. Quantitative easing, they call QE. They say QE infinity. It looks like it's going to go on forever. Let me tell you, if it keeps going on and they don't slow it down, the purchasing power of the American dollar will be worth less and less until it's worth less. Totally worthless. And maybe that's their goal by the year 2025 to justify a great reset. I don't know. I'm not an alarmist, but I am a realist. So whatever they're trying to do, you need to be able to take ownership of your future. So I've always taught my clients as a retirement planning specialist to outpace inflation, unless we run into runaway inflation, by linking your returns to the things that inflate. And I say that, and a lot of general financial advisors go, How do you do that? Well, I explain it in the books that I want to gift you. So when I say link your returns to the things that inflate, I set aside my serious cash into my favorite instrument. I call it the laser fund. And the laser fund is one of my favorites because it's tax-free. So I'm immune from taxes going up because the growth is tax-free. I only have to earn, 8% or 10% to net what most people have to earn 15% in a tax-deferred IRA or 401k. Then you pay tax when you take out the money to net 10. I only have to earn 10 to net 10 because it's tax-free. I link my returns to the things that inflate, which basically means if inflation, the cost of living, goes up 10, I've usually earned at least 15. If inflation goes to 15, I usually earn 20. In this very year that I'm recording this episode, 2021, we've had many clients lock in gains of 25%, 32%, even 61.33%. Why? Because they've linked their returns to the things that are going up. But here's the deal. When we have a market crash, when the economy goes down, they will not lose the money they made this year. We actually have a client who started out in March of 2020 with $850,000 in his laser fund. Without adding a dime, it grew by over $500,000. By March of 2021, he ended up with $1,382,000. Now, if the next year the market crashes 40%, he will not lose one dime of that $1,382,000. He may not make much of anything if the market crashes, but he doesn't lose. If the market goes up, he gets to participate with a rate that's usually equal to or greater than the inflation rate, but when the market crashes, he doesn't lose, and that's a strategy called indexing. Now, I have other videos on this very channel that talk about that. You can search indexing. But here's what I want you to do. Not only to subscribe to this channel, but I want you to study and read one of my books. Now, I'll gift you this. It retails for $20 on Amazon. I'll pay for the book. You simply go to laserfund.com, laserfund.com, and contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that cost. And I'll fire out a hard copy of this 300-page book to you. It's 2 books in one. This white-covered side is 200 pages. And it has all the charts and graphs and explanations telling you, teaching you how to diversify and create the foundation for a tax-free retirement, how to have inflation work for you instead of against you, and also protect yourself from market volatility. If you learn more by stories, there's 62 stories on this side. You flip it over and you read about 100 pages, 12 chapters here, and these are 62 actual client stories who have utilized the laser fund for all kinds of financial goals, not just retirement. So that's about the money. Now, if you want to learn how to take ownership and teach your children and grandchildren that instead of relying on what the government does or hoping that you'll survive, I would also recommend you claim your free copy of this book, Entitlement Abolition. You can go to entitlementabolitionbook.com. Same thing. You contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling, and I'll pay for the book. I would love for you to get both copies, and you can do that. There's options there to listen and learn, watch and learn. There's even 18-hour master classes that you can watch on each of those 2 concepts. But this is about your brighter future. And so my prediction about the future purchasing power of the American dollar is it's going to be cut in half, probably every 5-6 years at least. I don't want you to be hurt by that. I want inflation to help you, not hinder you, because most people are going to be devastated if they do not learn how to protect themselves from the negative impact of taxes, inflation, and market volatility. Don't be one of them. Join me on this educational channel.